All right now, settle in, folks, because if you think life in the suburbs is boring, you've never had a Tuesday quite like mine. One moment you're minding your own business, maybe even admiring how the late afternoon sun lights up your peace roses, feeling a little proud, a little nostalgic, and the next, you've got cold steel clamped around your wrists and your neighbor is on your porch with a hammer like she's auditioning for a remake of The Shining. Yeah, that actually happened. Never thought I'd see the day, but here we are. So let me take you back, paint the picture the way it really felt, the way it's seared into my memory, because sometimes the wildest stories don't need a lick of exaggeration. That M.Y. name's Arthur Williams. Art to my friends. And Sycamore Drive in Clearview, Ohio has been my little patch of the American dream for over 35 years. Raised my boy David here, buried my beloved Sarah here, planted every flower, painted every inch of trim myself. I always figured I knew every neighbor, every crack in the sidewalk, every season's rhythm. At least until Janet Jenkins moved in across the street with her cop husband Doug, and that teal blazer of hers that always looked like it was a size too small and two shades too loud. Now Janet, as my son later joked, was a full-blooded HOA Karen. The kind who polishes her rulebook more often than her silverware. The kind who's never met a neighborly courtesy she couldn't weaponize. I used to just shake my head, mow my grass to exactly her specifications, move my granddaughter's wind chimes when she complained they disturbed her serenity, and let her nitpicking roll right off me. Sarah, God rest her soul, always said I had the patience of a saint and the stubbornness of a mule, and she was right. But Janet seemed determined to find my breaking point. That Tuesday, she found it. See, I'm out back wrangling with a patch of crabgrass, sweating like a sinner in church, and I hear this racket from the front yard. Metal on wood, banging and scraping, like someone's trying to break into a music store. I round the corner, and there she is, hammer in hand, blonde helmet of hair askew, literally prying at my front door, mumbling about official HOA inspection. I try to keep my cool. Janet, you lose your key? I say, more sarcasm than concern, but she just whirls around and shrieks. I'm performing an inspection. Your door is non-compliant and my master key isn't working. A master key? To my house. I tell you, it would have been funny if she wasn't dragging the hammer across my door, leaving a scratch that still makes my eye twitch when I walk by it. When I told her there's no such thing as a master key for privately owned homes, and she might want to leave before she made things worse, her face went red as a beet. You people always think you're above the rules, she shouts, waving her phone at me. And that's when the real trouble started. She called her husband Doug, who showed up ready to play tough cop, and next thing I know, I'm in handcuffs on my own front porch, neighbors peeking out from behind curtains, kids staring wide-eyed, Janet smirking, Doug's yelling about assaulting an HOA official, which, for the record, never happened. The only thing I was holding was a garden trowel, lying peacefully by the fence. Humiliating? You better believe it. But the part that really burned was watching Doug Jenkins, a man sworn to protect, treat his wife's delusions like gospel, all because I dared ask what crime I was being accused of on my own property. The ride to the police station was a blur of Doug's bad cop movie monologues and my own disbelief. This can't be real, can it? And the whole time I'm thinking about David, my son, a county dispatcher probably listening in on this circus from the other end of the line. He always kept his cool, but I could picture his face when he heard his old man was in custody for resisting an HOA. Not exactly the family legacy I was aiming for. Let me back up a sec, because here's where the twist comes in. While I'm being fingerprinted and processed like a common criminal, David's doing his own digging. He checks the call logs, notes Janet's name as complainant, Doug's conflict of interest, and starts a little mental file. He knows me, knows I'm about as hostile as a teddy bear. It didn't take long for things to start unraveling. Detective Miller, the one reasonable cop in this whole farce, sits me down, listens to my story. Hammer, master key, racial undertones and all. She nods, asks around, and when she comes back, she's got the look of someone who just found out the emperor's got no clothes. We're not pressing charges, Mr. Williams. This looks like a neighborhood dispute that got way out of hand. I'm free to go. No apology, of course, but a quiet acknowledgement that the system, this time, caught itself before it toppled over the edge. Walking out of that station, David waiting for me in the lobby, I felt anger and relief in equal measure. "This isn't just about you, Dad," he says, voice tight. "It's about abuse of power." And he's right. Janet and Doug can't just weaponize their marriage against the rest of us. That was the moment the mule in me really woke up, kicked hard. If Janet wanted a fight, she'd get one. Quiet, methodical, legal, and public. First step: a formal complaint against Doug for unlawful arrest, harassment, conflict of interest. David helped me write it up, every detail from the scratch on the door to the shifting accusations. We filed with internal affairs and the city manager. No more letting things slide. Next up, the HOA. Turns out, Janet's been ruling Sycamore Drive like her own little fiefdom, inventing rules, handing out fines, intimidating neighbors. But the bylaws, those precious bylaws, say any homeowner can call for a financial review with enough signatures. And let me tell you, when Mrs. Norma, our resident firebrand, heard what happened, she was the first to sign. The story started rolling in. Janet fined Mr. Henderson for his son's basketball hoop, scolded the Changs for an overflowing recycling bin, tried to dictate the color of holiday lights. It was a simmering pot of resentment, and my arrest was the spark. People were ready. We got the signatures, called a special meeting, and started gathering evidence of Janet's power trips. Janet, meanwhile, doubled down, sent me a violation notice for the scratch she herself made, claimed my peace roses were too yellow, tried to bait me into losing my temper. I played it cool, pruned the roses, painted the tips beige to match HOA requirements, of course, malicious compliance at its finest, and collected every letter, every threat, every little piece of her nonsense for the big day. Internal affairs took its sweet time, but eventually Doug faced discipline, a reprimand in his file, mandatory retraining, and a public loss of swagger. The neighborhood watched. When the HOA meeting finally came, it was electric. Neighbors who'd never dared speak up before shared their stories. Even Officer Doug sat in silence as Janet squirmed under the weight of her own misdeeds. A vote of no confidence was called, and for once, democracy delivered. Janet was removed from every HOA post, dethroned in the most public, satisfying way possible. The air on Sycamore Drive shifted, lighter, freer, like a storm had passed. The new HOA, led by Mrs. Norma, focused on fairness and transparency. Janet faded into the background, her teal blazer retired, her clipboard gathering dust. Doug kept to himself, his patrols noticeably absent from our block. But you know what? The real cherry on top was the barbecue. See, David had a final stroke of genius. A giant, glittery master key presented to Janet in front of the whole neighborhood. A harmless but unforgettable symbol of her reign and its absurd end. Folks laughed. She turned a shade of red no paint swatch can capture. And for a brief moment, everyone felt what real community looks like, standing up to a bully, reclaiming your peace, and moving forward with your dignity intact. So, let me ask, ever had a neighbor who thought the rules were just for everyone else? Ever had to get creative to stand up for your own peace? Tell me your stories in the comments. Because sometimes, the most powerful justice isn't loud or angry. It's steady, clever, and served with a big OL side of public humility. And if you're ever tempted to let the little things slide, remember, a community's real strength is in the people who refuse to be pushed around. One rose, one signature, and sometimes one oversized golden key at a time.